to pray. There's no angels where I go, only pieces that are broken, scattered dreams across the floor. I'm home.
Alrighty, hello everybody, this is Kiro Show here. Now then, sadly this will be the only other video I post for today. I do have to go to work for the next couple of days and I will be getting a day off pretty soon. So, I do hope you guys understand. I will be trying to post more, but yeah, my schedule seems to be full. So I'm just trying to do what I can, and I do hope you guys understand. Now then, let us begin. Whenever we last left off, Deku and Todoroki, they had just chased down the Nomu that picked up Stain, and they had successfully recaptured him. Now, Deku is breathing a bit heavy, as he does feel a pain in his head. Once again, All For One would appear, as Deku freaks out. As he stands up to his feet, Todoroki could watch him back away slowly. As he does walk past her, and he actually does grab his hand outwards, basically holding it out, telling her to not walk forward, as she's just asking him what he sees, as she sees pure fear on his face. As it turns to rage, Deku lashing out forwards, basically throwing punches at something that's not even there, as he's just shouting one simple thing: All For One. Basically, Deku would have been shocked whenever he went straight through it, but he would have just kept swinging at it, trying to piss it off, or well, get it to go away, which would kinda concern Todoroki. Now, Deku, he would have saw it disappear as his nose began to bleed. Somewhat confused. He didn't even say anything this time, as she would walk over to him, getting his attention. Now, Deku would have immediately turned toward, looking a bit angry for a second, before he goes back to rationality, calming back down, as she would ask him exactly what was he doing. It's a long story. Listen, as Deku realizes his nose is bleeding, and his head hurts, so All For One really is targeting them. Just like his dad said. Shit. Listen, you know about All For One already. Whatever he's been doing, he's been trying to get into my head. I just saw him again. Please tell me you saw him that time. So I'm not crazy, right? You were swinging at nothing. No. If that's the case, then, as Deku would somewhat get a bit panicky for a second, trying to come up with different, reasons and excuses to why she probably didn't see him. A mind control quirk being on the list, or at least an illusion-based one. Now, with that being said, Stain would be successfully taken to Tartarus prison, or the prison that All For One is in, and left there to rot, as he was not able to inspire a next generation. Now, let us cut to the next day. Ida, he is in the hospital and he is injured, while everyone is somewhat taking time to recuperate from their internships. Deku actually did invite Bakugo and Kirishima over to his house, while Todoroki, she, and Momo are kind of hanging out and training together, since they were going to catch up anyways. Now, they actually would have all met up together, since it was kind of brought to the attention that, hey, we're all going to be training, so might as well give it a shot. Now, Bakugo and Kirishima, they would have been shocked to see this entire room. This place feels bigger on the inside, but even then it's crazy. Deku already turned up the gravity a bit, so they would have felt how heavy it is. They would have felt that everything moving is straining and stressful, as Deku's has the gravity up to around times 2. This is where Kirishima and Bako would have been in shock to find that these two, or these three, they're moving around like nothing. Deku actually still having a weighted shirt on, as he would have, well, taken their shirt off and immediately just tossed it to the ground, as it would hit the ground with a loud thud. He would walk over to his backpack, grabbing a water bottle and his other shirt, as he would put it on. He would begin drinking the water, as he would close the bottle and then tell Baku that he needs to hurry up. Besides, here's a bit of encouragement, as Deku would just toss the water bottle straight at him, pissing him off for a second. Baku begins to try and move forward, using anger and somewhat spite, to try and get closer to Deku. Deku, he would be somewhat laughing at this. Bakugo moving forward while Kirishima, he is still trying to get used to this. He's kind of breathing heavy, and Todoroki, she would tell him that he needs to calm down, as Momo would be trying to instruct Kirishima how to do it properly, and how to do this. Now, a lot of other students would have heard about their whole gravity training, and Momo kinda had to talk with a few of them. They would have gotten the okay from All Might and invite some more students over. I want to say Ochako and Mina to say those two. I want to say Jiro and Kaminari also, as they would at least try and get them ready for this, it being a bit more difficult. Now, with that, Deku, he would have increased the gravity after everyone else got somewhat used to it, and adapted to it. Now, he would turn it up to ×4 this time, so double what they were already feeling, which Bakugo, he's clearly straining at, and barely able to move, let alone keep himself up. Kirishima, whenever he does harden his body, he does feel himself somewhat start bending and breaking a bit, but he would have been able to at least unharden and harden again, trying to use this to train his quirk while keeping himself on his feet, while everyone else is still straining. Mina, Jiro, and Kaminari being the ones that are having trouble. Ochako, though, she's trying to use her quirk. She's trying to keep herself floating in the air, but the gravity being ×4, she's basically feeling only a fourth of her body weight. And or I want to say, it's at least keeping her somewhat floating in the air. Now, because of that, it is actually putting immense strain on her quirk, so she is doing a form of training. As before the end of the day, Deku would have pumped it up to ×10, leaving everyone a bit exhausted, as they would do this training for a week, and the final exams would come up. Now then, with that being said, let us begin. For the final exams, we have Deku and Todoroki versus All Might. Now then, this is going to be very, very difficult, since, well, this is basically a bit of a conundrum. Nezu really didn't want to schedule this fight or put it like this, but, well, he sort of had to, since the odds of Deku winning against his dad, they are far less than him winning against any other teacher. Along with him having Todoroki on his team, that will prove to be useful. Now, the battle would begin, as Deku, he would walk in, his cape somewhat moving around, as Todoroki, she would just say that they need to be on their toes. We're not sure exactly what he has planned. I have a pretty good idea, as Deku would cock back his arm, and immediately pull backwards, charging up Kaioken times 2 as he would throw 42% of one for all forward, as they would be a loud boom, and wind would just be flaring up all around him. As in the middle of the city, you would just hear a sonic boom, as Deku's blast and All Might's have collided. People actually watching as a building basically gets cut in half by the force alone, which kinda was confusing. They were looking to see where they are, but no one's moved, as All Might would just disappear from the screen when they look back. They would see that All Might, he's right behind Deku, as Deku would have immediately turned, throwing out his hand. As All Might, he would have dodged it. Todoroki should have gone to blast him with fire. As All Might would immediately begin to dodge, barely getting out of the way of this, as he would have thrown both of his hands outwards, clapping directly in front of Todoroki. This would have actually threw off her eardrums, as it also put out her fire, as she basically brings her hands up to her head trying to shake this off. Deku, he would have saw that, and he would turn up the Kaioken, bringing himself up to times 20 immediately, and rushing in, as he would go for a punch and All Might would go to block it, Deku knowing exactly what he's about to do. He's seen his old man fight enough to know his fighting style, as Deku would somewhat smirk. He would use float, and immediately just kick his leg upwards, smashing it up in All Might's jaw, as he charged up Kaioken to 20%. Well, one for all the 20%. And that was enough to get All Might pissed off, since All Might actually did have to wipe the blood off of his face. And he actually did pop his neck, and began to pop his knuckles, as he's getting more serious. Immediately blitzing and trying to smash Deku in the back of the neck, and take him out. People would have saw All Might immediately do this, as they're thinking that, oh crap, this is over. As Deku, he would have been able to move his body upwards, and get out of the way. Him basically floating as he would grab All Might's hand and immediately start turning it. All Might trying to fight against Deku, as Deku would be able to get All Might's body over him and immediately lift him up in the air, spinning him around and throwing him. As Todoroki, she has recovered. She's actually able to somewhat hear again, and she's ready, as All Might would have gotten back up, running straight for them. She would have let out as much ice as possible as Deku, he begins to fly forward. All Might would begin punching through the ice, and Deku would be right behind it, as whenever he breaks through the final piece, he gets clogged across the face by Deku, who is amping himself up to dangerous levels. He's using the Kaioken at times 25 while using around 50 to 45% of one for all. All Might watching as Deku's body is actually beginning to buff up more and more. He's saying that he needs to basically either take a fall or beat his son. His son has gotten a lot better. He's actually having to get a lot more serious, and these weights are making it hard to hold back. Now, All Might would have done one thing, bringing his hand upwards toward the weight, immediately just ripping it off, and dropping it to the ground, doing so for both of his arms and for his legs. People somewhat being in shock, as All Might, he would rush forward, Deku doing the same, these two immediately meeting fists with a sonic boom, as Todoroki begins to run forward, blasting in as much fire as possible, as she's basically trying to keep All Might distracted and, well, provide cover for Deku. She knows that she can't provide a physical speed advantage. She's very fast, yes, but not as fast as these two. They're able to move faster than the human eye, as she's watching these two create sonic booms, and basically whatever they can, as he is not even really focusing on her. But she can't just leave him behind. Now, whenever that happens, Deku, he would have been able to get close enough to All Might and actually disorient him, as he would have thrown both of his hands outwards, letting the heat blast All Might directly in the face, drying out his eyes and having the sparks actually hit him in the face. Immediately just moving forward, smashing his hands in his dad's nose, and disorienting him. All Might would begin to swing wildly, as he would actually be able to knock Deku across his own face, breaking part of his jaw and sending him flying through a couple buildings, as he would have gotten back up. Deku would turn the Kaioken up to times 30, and actually go a bit further, bringing it up to times 35, as All Might would watch his body actually get super huge, basically a size bigger than what it already was, saying that he's pushing himself to the physical limit just to beat him. So, he's proud of his son, as he would somewhat smile. People commenting on this, as Todoroki would lay down as big of a pillar of ice as possible, covering the entire area from these two. Deku flying directly upwards as All Might tries to rush through. He would have done so looking around for Midoriya, throwing his hand out behind him trying to see if he can swing at Deku. However, Deku already brought his hands backwards and his face, dodging out of the blast, or well, the punch, as he would just kick his dad in the chest, using float to actually bring himself forward. Grabbing one of his dad's arms, he would just be able to hold onto it, as All Might would try and swing him around and grab him with the other arm, Deku holding it, as he is able to basically just kick into his dad's chest over and over and over again, breaking 2 or 3 ribs, as he actually does throw his dad as high upwards as possible, using sonic booms and whatever he can with his punches to force him into the sky, as these two are basically flying. Todoroki being in shock. Now, Deku, he begins to feel something in his arm. He knows this, so he's gotta end it fast, as he would shout Kaioken once again. All Might watching as he sees his son with his hands overhead, as Deku would smash them downwards. The last thing All Might's seeing is something happen to Deku's arms, as All Might, he gets heavily concussed, and gets sent flying directly towards the earth, smashing through the highest skyscraper and having it collapse, as he goes into a 3rd-story building. As Deku is tired, his body is at the physical limit, and he can feel something running down his hands, as he begins to somewhat fall, his aura immediately dropping as his body somewhat goes limp, and he's falling. People taking notice of this, as Todoroki, she sees him doing this. She lays down a pillar, well, somewhat of a pillar of ice underneath her, bring her hand downwards and string herself up, as she would get close enough to actually grab Deku and get him out of the air, as she nearly fell doing this. As soon as that happens, she tries to wake him up, being able to, well, get his attention by somewhat freezing over the area, which the intense cold would have gotten his attention, filling his body with adrenaline and basically forcing him awake, as he would just be coughing for a second. He would look around and realize that he's still on the battlefield. Crap, did we lose? No, we're fine. Listen, I don't know how distracted your dad's gonna be, but... As she would hear something, All Might has gotten back up, as he walks out of the rubble and he's actually a bit dazed, actually basically sliding to the left and falling onto his knee, as he's basically just bringing his hand up to his head trying to shake off a concussion. People actually being surprised Deku was able to hit him that hard. All Might didn't even recover instantly, it took him time, and he's really dazed, as she would tell Deku that they need to move. Now, as soon as that happens, they would turn around. Deku is somewhat limping and actually moving, as they're heading for the exit. All Might would have gained his composure, as he would turn actually running after them. He's not going at his high speeds, however, but he's still moving very fast, Deku hearing this, as he would have charged up one for all on his arm, and as soon as his dad got close enough, he would have threw it backwards, sweeping the entire area. As the shockwave would make All Might bring his hands up and rush forward as fast as possible. Deku being ready for this. As his dad, he is directly in front of him. He tried to blitz him because he didn't think he could recover from that. But that's where he's wrong. As Deku has his hands up in the air, All Might getting ready to throw a punch past his arm and into his face, as he has one directly aimed for Todoroki too. Basically, this will take both of them out and make them fail the exams. He really isn't giving him an easy time. As Deku's thinking in his head, he's only going to have one shot at this, so he better make it count. As he would turn up the Kaioken, bringing it up to times 10 and smashing out forward with as much force of one for all as possible. As Deku would make contact with All Might's chest, and everything behind All Might gets completely obliterated, leaving a path of destruction in their wake. Deku, he would just be standing there with his hand upwards as All Might is gone. They don't even know where he's at. Wherever he is in that rubble somewhere. As Deku's fist, it is smoking, and his body is actually twitching. As people would watch Deku immediately just go limp, once again. Except this time, he falls backwards in his body, parts of it start to bleed. His right hand begins to somewhat burst and bleed more, going up his entire forearm up to his arm. As that punch Deku held back on, or at least tried to. He didn't want to break his arm and cause more trouble for Recovery Girl, but he tried to push himself past the physical limit to it. So whatever he did, he just tore a couple more muscles, which were not good on the oncoming injuries. Todoroki being able to pick him up and throw him over her shoulder, carrying him out, as she would get his injuries tended to, along with some of her own. All Might actually did do a pretty good number on both of them. However, she was lucky to come out with as little battle damage as possible. As Deku, he would be healed by Recovery Girl, hands bandaged and everything, as she would have told him that she understands his trouble. As the heroes, they are still searching for All Might, as they would have eventually found him. At the very end of Deku's whole, ginormous blast, there lies All Might, buried into the earth and passed out, as he would have brought his hands up to block it. However much force Deku threw at him broke both of All Might's arms, and more of his ribs. So, the boy is going to be quite the hefty hero. However, All Might would have asked Nezu to leave out the details about his arms breaking. He doesn't want that boy to be overconfident. To which Nezu would have obliged, saying that whatever Deku did, he got a lucky shot in on his dad. Now, with that being said, everybody would leave, as they have passed their final exams. Mina and Kaminari, I believe, they somewhat were able to get through. I want to say that they were able to move through the maze a bit faster, and Momo would have given them advice. Always follow a maze by holding your hand out to the right side. That way you can find an exit. Even then, Mina could just burn a hole straight through with her acid. So, following this advice, they would stay to the right of the maze that Nezu trapped them in, and burn their way through, going along the outer wall and finding the exits, as they would have beat Nezu that way. Now, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video and have an amazing night. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.